on? Yes?
Sure. Yes,
okay,
sure.
So go ahead.
Hi. Thank you. We're live from the MELSIG conference at Edge Hill University in the UK. I'm Mahad Ali, the co-director of Virtually Connecting, and I have a group of our buddies here right now. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves as they talk about Virtually Connecting as placemaking. And I'm going to share some slides, not too many slides, just to show you what Virtually Connecting is and what we're about, and talk about digital placemaking in that sense. Can you see my screen well? I hope you can. Okay, so this is the group of us talking to you today, and we're going to talk about Virtually Connecting as digital placemaking.
We can only see, excuse me, a green screen. Can you see?
Oh.
Only see a green screen.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Is this okay now?
Not yet.
No, I'm sorry.
Really? Let me try one more time. It's just going to help a little bit because we're talking about placemaking and I want to show the places. So let me try this one more time. Oh, I'm seeing the green screen myself now. Okay. Any better?
Yeah.
We can see something. Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And so I'm from Cairo in Egypt, and over here I've got several people with me from different countries, and they're going to introduce themselves and say where they're from. But we're part of a team of people calling ourselves Virtually Connecting. And the way Virtually Connecting started is that as a mother of a young child here in Egypt, it's very difficult for me to travel to conferences. And what I miss out isn't presenting like I'm presenting to you today, and it isn't listening to other people's sessions, because a lot of things get live streamed and a lot of presentations get shared. What I miss out on most is the informal conversations that we have in the hallway. So I'm talking about placemaking. I miss out on those third places where people get to chat and build social capital, and that's what was bothering me about missing. And what we do instead is that my friend Rebecca Hogue offered to let me talk to people through her phone or her laptop during sessions, and so people would pop in and talk to me for like 20 or 30 minutes about what the conference is about, how it's going, and things like that. And then after we tried this as a pilot, we realized that a lot of people actually could benefit from it, because there are a lot of people with financial, health, social issues why they can't travel, people who aren't affiliated, graduate students, and so on. And so we started to expand to other conferences, and we have a large team of volunteers who do this. So whether managing the virtual side or the on-site side, and we invite other people to join those conversations. It's no longer about me and Rebecca, it's about anyone who wants to join any of those conversations. And someone mentioned we just had those sessions before we started this one, and someone mentioned chalkboards. That's actually a picture of my daughter the first time she saw a chalkboard and she started playing with it. And this quote about a wall does not appear to those who don't come up against it is that I think a lot of people don't think about those are people who cannot make it to conferences if you're the kind of person where it's easy for you to travel, or if there are conferences geographically near you. And the thing is, you can see a wall and just stop and turn around and say, I'm not going to get past it. Or you can see a wall and imagine it as a window or as a chalkboard, and you can do something with it. And I think that's what we've done here, is we've taken something that was a barrier and turned it into our advantage. And instead now we have people from all over the world taking part in conversations, especially in educational technology conferences, because that's our just the way we know each other. And one of the key things we talk about when you're building a space is hospitality, and how do you make a space, whether digital or face-to-face, hospitable to people, so that they can come in and feel like they can be themselves and relax and have a good conversation. That picture is from a session, the design of which is by Autumn Keynes, one of our co-directors, where they brought in 3 different virtual folks to talk to different people on different tables. And that picture with them carrying us, to me, feels like, they're making an extra physical effort. And in the session, just this one also, they were using an iPad and someone was holding it. That's a little bit of an extra effort, and trying to set it up so that it feels like it's a good social conversation. All of that takes up a lot of time. And this picture over here is showing us laughing and having fun, and it's at the OER 17 conference in London in April. And Josie Fraser, who's one of the co-chairs of that conference, took that picture. And I think it just captures the kind of, we're having a talk about academic things, but we're also having fun while talking about it. And Diana Arce, who's in that picture, had given a keynote the night before about how when you're doing activist art, you want to go where the people are. And that session physically was in the cafeteria underneath where the conference was taking place. And with virtually connecting, you go where the people are in the sense you use technology. I mean, virtually connecting is not about the technology. We're just using Google Hangouts, it's free, and we let people know about it through. That's what people already are, and we use the hashtags for the conferences so people can find us easily. And this is Amy Collier, who's one of our advisory buddies, who talked about how virtually connecting reminds people who can attend a conference in person about the voices who are not in the making a digital place, a place will automatically be exclusive. And something like virtually connecting is a way to make you more aware of the people who can't be in that room. I actually had it from Christian for the next one, but I think I'll turn off the screen sharing and let Christian talk, and then others who are with me here can talk. Go ahead.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Christian Friedrich from Hamburg in Germany. Just as an introduction, I stumbled into virtually connecting actually from quite a different angle, I think, because I signed up for it not knowing what it would actually be, and then found myself in a session with, I think at that point, last 2 years ago almost, with Jim Groom and some other of the more famous rock stars in the world of EdTech. And it was quite intimidating at first, but I made an effort to make myself familiar with that space, so to speak. And I'm now and then a buddy for this, so happy to be here.
And Christian, you said you wanted to say something about, I think, ownership and digital placemaking?
Well, for me and Teresa touched on a very similar topic on ownership and agency in the conversation we had before we started the last session. For me, and that resonated very much with me, Teresa, was the point that in order to think about making a space and then taking ownership of a place for me to learn or to interact in, I need to have some kind of agency and ownership over that space. And I also remember and it really resonated with me also in the last session when we started out with, I think it was Claire who introduced her topic of the VLE and students' perceptions of the VLE and how they interact there, that those it almost seems like that spaces we create seem to be places where we also kind of infringe on learning experiences and also try to make learning happen in a formal way, which goes back to something that you, Sarah, said in the last session. And as soon as we try to do that, as soon as we try to create those kinds of spaces and set out rules and guidances and restrict ownership and agency for our learners, they become formal spaces that almost are dead spaces, to me at least. And that's kind of the relationship that I see with agency, ownership, and not sure if it's placemaking, but learning in general, and also learning, as Simon said in the last session, happens at lots of places, and not only at those places where we imagine it to be.
I'd like to pick up from that, Christian. Thank you. Thanks very much for putting that so much better than I could have done as well. It's kind of, I'm seriously worried that, and maybe this is very British, but I suspect it's cross-cultural. That if I invite you into my room, it remains my room, my space. And you know, you'll expect me to move the furniture to make it comfortable for you or whatever. Yeah, the wonderful thing about virtually connecting is that it has enabled us to connect across our boundaries and our expectations. And I've been really privileged to work with virtually connecting several times now. my work online has been very largely with Simon, and it has been very much around telecollaboration and connecting individuals in lots of different ways, and being compliant with rules and regulations for students and where they can be and everything else. But agency is so important. Who owns your spaces? And I may want to connect with you through a particular channel for a particular purpose for a particular time, and then withdraw and use that channel in a different way. A wonderful thing about virtually connecting is that we've been able to join discussions, and hopefully we will arrive at a more significant place with greater understanding through collaborative discussions. So great work, Maha and the team, because virtually connecting has helped some fabulous things happen. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, just picking up on that and continuing that conversation. If we think about the fact that we're all on a learning journey, I think it's, for me, the ability to join in with these other conversations, to have my voice heard, but also to listen. And that's because I work in college-based higher education. And college-based higher education is HE education taught in the context of a further education college. So we're slightly different to the traditional university. We have a lot of vocational programs and learners who may come from kind of quite challenging and diverse circumstances. But at the same time, we want to embrace newness and we want to innovate. We want to listen. We want to be part of conversations, but we don't tend to get out of the institution very much. We don't tend to, we're not in the ref, so we don't tend to get funded to go outside. And this is wonderful, because this lets me be a part and learn and transform my own learning journey and give back, I hope, to a society that is genuinely interested in exploring ideas from multiple perspectives. And what I like about virtually connecting is that this, to me, seems like a kitchen table space. This is not, we think of technology, we think of something that is well groomed and sleek and smooth and people-less. This, to me, feels a messy and real way of engaging with people and conversation without feeling pressured to wear that business suit and tick that box, but to actually engage and make meanings and negotiate and understand that these conversations are not finished. They do not have to be tidily closed and wrapped up like a box. The box is open. Conversations can continue after the actual connecting session.
I think Sarah said what I wanted to say much better than I'm going to say it. So thanks, Sarah. I'm Martin Weller from the Open University, and I'm an advisory buddy for Virtual Connecting. I think so. One of the things I'm interested in is how technology shapes the kind of dialogues we have. And I had an experience this recently. So some of you may have tried the social media site Mastodon. And it's never going to take over from Twitter, I don't think it is. But it's interesting to go in there, because going there made me think, what do I want from a social media space now? We kind of, when we first went on Twitter and Facebook, we kind of let them shape us in a way. But now we're kind of all reasonable experts in social media. So we start thinking, so how do we want this community to behave? What's different about it? And I think that, a lot of our behavior is kind of really, it's not accidental, it's kind of coded into the algorithms in the software. So Mike Caulfield, for instance, is very good on looking at how Facebook, fake news isn't just an accidental byproduct of Facebook. It's built up to distribute fake news. That's what it does, in the way it kind of gets you to distribute stories and not go into critical analysis of them and those kind of things. So I think a really interesting for us now is to start thinking, how do we want to shape those learning spaces? So to come back to Sarah's point, the thing I really like about virtual connecting is I think that phrase you use, messiness. It's like it's not, and I don't mean it's any disrespect with this, but it's not polished. It's not meant to be polished. The fact is, it's got that kind of slight DIY feel to it. It's using Google Hangouts. Anyone can do it. We're not using some slick system with kind of proper video and audio techniques, and sometimes it fails, and sometimes we're going off a phone. And actually, that's part of its charm. But there's a very kind of indirect message that gives people that you can come into this conversation. You don't need to be in a studio to do it. You don't need to have particular technology is doing. You know, it's open to everyone. So there's a kind of whole implicit message about the way it operates. And I think we need to explore more of those messages that are kind of embodied in software, if you like.
Okay, and Simon?
Yeah, I'm Simon Ensor. I'm an English teacher over in Clermont-Ferrand in France. And I'd like to sort of extend the conversation out from this hangout to lunch yesterday. And I was sitting down with 3 people from Split in Croatia and a physics teacher who happened to have been in a session which was inspired by the competences or incompetence developed working with virtually connecting, using Hangouts informally in spaces which was the classroom. And I had a group of teachers who are university teachers, and we had a hangout. There's Teresa and Terry Elliott from the US, Marita from Finland, and Teresa who was here, and I can't remember who the other person was. But anyway, from that conversation came a spark for one of the teachers who said, well, maybe I could involve you in a project which would be opening up trade routes between Croatia and Clermont-Ferrand, because I'm going to go to Croatia for a year. And what I would like is people to go from France to Croatia, rather than from Croatia just to France. And this really came from an iPhone with a Hangout, inspired with the sort of things that we're doing informally in Virtually Connecting. And that has opened up a whole new conversation. And this is continued. I've been having conversations with 2 or 3 other people who are teaching, who are talking about how we can actually bring the students into these sorts of conversations. Firstly, by watching the recorded conversation, and then actually going to participate, and then perhaps actually going to the conference. So this is not just Virtually Connecting, it's much, much wider.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody want to add anything else before we open up questions to the audience? Okay. Tunda, is there anyone from the audience who wants to ask us?
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for leading us into connecting with you, really. It's been fascinating to hear your examples and the community emerging. Anyone? So yeah, I will ask the audience now here. Anyone would like to make any questions, observations, comments? I mean, can I ask you, because Maha, you were saying about, you know, starting it, and it resonated with me, your story, just how you got people involved, and what you've got a lovely, diverse people with different backgrounds, different sectors, how you all started it, and what made it keep going. I think you started it a little bit, but if you can.
Yeah. So I'll say something, and then maybe they could say themselves why they got interested. But so what happened was I already have a big Twitter network, so I know a lot of people from Twitter. And so what happened when we first started Virtually Connecting, Rebecca, is that I went on Twitter and told people, by the way, we're going to do this. And I knew a lot of the people at the conference, so that I convinced them to do this thing where they stop part of the conference and come to me. And I also knew a lot of people who couldn't be at the conference who would have liked to meet these people. So I used a lot of different hashtags, and I announced that these things were going to happen. Would you like to join? And the thing is, for the most part, people don't understand what it is, like Christian was saying. But what I would do is, if someone favorites or retweets and shows some interest in what's happening, I'd go back and ask them, would you like to join us? And that's a little bit part of the hospitality, because people don't automatically know that they can join something. A lot of people understand that they can watch something, but they don't always understand that they can be in the conversation without having an invitation. And so other than inviting people who are high profile guests, I also want to invite anyone who's interested. And so I have to, at the beginning, that's what I did for my own Twitter account. But now we have a Virtually Connecting Twitter account that does that, so different people have access to the same thing. And I think different people have joined us in different ways. For example, Martin, I think the first time we interacted with him, he was an on-site guest, but he liked it. Christian was virtual the first time, but he was an on-site buddy. We call ourselves buddies, people who help volunteer and make this work. I'll ask them if they want to say something about, you know, what attracted them to Virtually Connecting, what makes them stay. Or we have Debbie Baff, who's attending with us. She's not part of our team, but she should be, but maybe she's busy with her PhD. So if anybody wants to jump in here and say something.
Okay, great, fantastic, thank you. Anyone?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay.
So I knew Maha through Twitter quite well, and we had lots of conversations. I was on site at a conference in Canada, I think, and Maha asked me to be the on-site buddy. And so just a kind of bit about that. Actually, I found that being an on-site buddy has also changed the nature of some of the relationships you have at a conference. You kind of get to meet different people, and you have these really good conversations. So a small example. So OER 17. Maha and I were part of a panel which was organised by a chap in the States, Jim Luke, who I met through being an on-site buddy, and he was another person there, so I was kind of running the session and getting the conversation going with him, and that's kind of proved to be quite a fruitful collaboration. So it's not just kind of about benefits for the virtual participants. I think it kind of has real benefits for when you're on site as well. So, and I think it's part of that whole kind of the culture it brings with it, and that's kind of sense of community.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just to add to this, I think with my colleague, when we had a number of webinars that were taking place after a while, we started booking a room and then going to be together in that space while taking part in the webinar so that we could discuss it. So kind of Maha's picture with you on the four of you kind of congregating in front of the laptop, is that what you can really then talk about what this presentation was about and some ideas. So I think there's that hybrid space as well is really interesting. Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yeah, I think. Is there anything, so in terms of anything upcoming events that you might be organizing, or anything upcoming that you're having in mind?
So if you don't mind, I could quickly join in and tap on to the notion of the different roles, basically. So Martin, what you said, that virtually connecting also changes your experience, whether you're an on-site buddy or whether you're just a participant in the session. And I've had both roles also at last year's DML, for example. And it really gives you the sense of, on the one hand, some kind of agency of how to shape those spaces and how to collaborate with others. And also it gives you the chance to actively live out your activist self, so to speak. So when you're at a conference that might be a bit more vendor driven than OER 17, you might have to claim spaces, and you have to work your way to gain ground with conference organizers, and you're competing against vendors as a community that has no funding whatsoever. And that's an interesting negotiation process in itself, and you kind of have, and then virtually connecting then might give you the feeling that you are part of a community that is, and there's no way of saying this without sounding cheesy, but that is somewhat on the good side, the Jedi side of online learning, so to speak. And that in itself changes the community and the way you interact with others who you know through virtually connecting. And where which has also, and I mean, I don't think there are many people from Germany who participate in this community. But what we're trying to do now, for example, is to bring this different experience to conferences in Germany as well, and see how it takes on and what people make of it and how they shape that, then see what comes of it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I think that's a very apt closure. I think that your Jedi metaphor really resonated in the room. I don't know if you didn't hear it. So let's get all our lightsabers out. And thank you so much for joining us, virtually connecting with us. And we're going to close and pass on to the next section. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
You can find us. Thank you. Thank you. And you can find us at virtuallyconnecting.org. We'll let you go. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for making it today. And Debbie, you're now officially part of the team. I've invited you.
Yay.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for making it. That was a really good conversation. No idea if they understood anything because we couldn't see their faces.
Yeah, so it's always difficult presenting to a room where you can't see the audience, and you've no idea if they're laughing or like just bored or whatever. You know.
Falling asleep.
Yeah.
You have no idea if there are like 3 people or 20 people
No.
or 50 people. No, it was great. It was great, Christian. You did well.
You ended it very well, Christian. Right, I'm going to go. My dog's clawing up my legs for me to take him out for a walk. So,
Hopefully that's all he's done on your leg.
yeah, at the moment, yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
That was just a useful reflection. It's interesting when someone sort of asks you to present about something very particular that you weren't really planning to talk about. Like, I'd never thought about virtually connecting as digital placemaking, and I had to. And then we all sort of had things to say, which is great.
I think it's really useful
Yeah.
because we have to do this more often, as to think what is this thing that we're doing and how does it spin off?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
as I tried to say before, it's quite astonishing how that actually has spun off in my conversations with people in the past 3 weeks. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, I mean, exactly like you say, it's not about this particular model. I mean, it's not this particular group or this particular, but there's so much
Well, yes
from it. The design of it can work for so many
Yes and
different
no.
contexts.
No, I think that I think there's something quite particular about virtually connecting, which is related to this idea of place, and you can't disconnect that from the fact that you have people who are recognizable that you trust within that space.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then when you don't have that person on site that you trust, like we have that problem today, it's a very different kind of experience. And like I was saying a couple of days ago when I was presenting at a conference and I didn't have that person I trusted on the other side, it does make a huge difference to the whole hospitality of it. But yeah, so there are some things that are very specific to this, and there are some things you can extrapolate and use outside of it. I think we all learn a lot from it that we could use elsewhere. We're still live, by the way. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say I really enjoyed that. That was really good. It's amazing how connected you do feel. It's a very warm and welcoming environment, really, and that's all credit to the people that give up their time really to do it. So thank you.
Which hopefully you will be one day. But we know you're working on your PhD.
I shall look out for the Slack invite. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I've got to run.
That's where everything goes more complicated.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Yeah, Teresa are big fans of Slack. So. Do you guys want to say anything before we go off the air?
No.
Okay, we'll go off the air then.